It is official. Brandon Smith is a bunny. He's leaving the Sydney Roosters, and it was signed and announced this afternoon, Gordy.
I think it's a great signing for South Sydney. The feud just keeps on going on, and Wayne will work out how to play him. I think Brandon Smith is one of those guys that plays a great 40, 50, 60 minutes, and Roosters probably signed him for like 80. Probably in hindsight is probably a mistake, but I think he'll be a good signing for South.
So we've known this is happening and about to be signed. It's been spoken about on this show the past few weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks now. How did it all go down, Hoops?
Yeah, Wayne and Brandon have been speaking for a number of weeks now. They've obviously officially announced it today. It's a 2-year deal. It starts next season. But where it'll get interesting is whether South and the Roosters, who are obviously fierce rivals and love to hate one another, can somehow negotiate Brandon possibly moving prior to June 30 this year. At this point in time, I can't see it happening. The Roosters were certainly saying a hard no today, but that's changed from earlier in the week. Well, the Roosters, off the back of a good win last week, I think they thought, well, hang on, Brandon actually gives us quality depth once he comes back in July, so we may well need him towards the back end of the season.
I think that's fair enough.
Why would you? I mean, just quickly before I come to you, Dave, if the Roosters are paying some money and he's going to their arch enemy, who have had a great start to the year, the Roosters are short on players a little bit this year and they don't have a hell of a lot of depth, losing some senior players in key positions. Why would you give him to them and hand them some money and say, here you go, here's some extra strength to your forward pack? I just can't imagine it happening.
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of layers to it. One, I reckon both clubs need to see whether they're in finals contention at the time of when they would consider to let him go prior to June 30 or even after. I think they have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Second to that is what is the financial gain? What are you taking off your salary cap to let Brandon Smith go? And it'll be around 200,000, 150,000. It's not that much.
Yeah.
So what's the appeal from Roosters to let him go? I say not too much.
Yeah.
I would hang on to him.
Okay, Brandon broke the news on the Buy Around podcast only hours ago.
Officially signed with the Bunnies. I guess it's been happening behind closed doors for a while now, and obviously everyone pretty much knew but didn't know. So it's good to finally have it announced and look forward to being a bunny in the next couple of years. It seemed very convenient. Wayne Bennett actually wanted me back, so it means that he's got a lot of interest in me. It all just kind of, the stars just aligned, and just to be able to be coached by Wayne Bennett, you know, I've had 2 amazing coaches in my career so far, and Craig and Trent, and now I get to go to another amazing coach that's probably one of the best ever. So conversation with Wayne was very blunt. It was just like, I'm going to sign you, like, we're going to make you a bunny. I was like, sweet. I'm happy at the Roosters for this year. Like, I'm happy to see out the contract. If they feel like they have an opportunity to let me go and bring a player in that could bring more value to some positions that they probably are lacking in value, then that's a discussion that I'd have to have with them and they'd have to have with me. But for now, if they want me to stay, I'll stay.
Yeah, I think it's a really good signing by the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Brandon Smith heading to the club now. The reason the Roosters bought him was to play 9, and they spent a lot of money in doing that. Are the Bunnies purchasing him as a 9 or a 13?
Well, Wayne's gone on the record today saying that they've bought him as a forward, so probably similar to the role that we saw him play in Melbourne. He would spend some time at dummy half. He'd also spend some time at lock. I think in the long run, though, Braith, to answer your question, I think there's no doubt that Souths are viewing him as a dummy half.
Okay, Memezoulis at the club at the moment has had a really strong start to the year. He was great on the weekend against the Dragons. Where does that leave him?
Yeah, you're right. Like, it certainly raises immediate questions, doesn't it? However, to Hoops' point, Wayne has been at pains since this story broke, at pains to declare that Pete Memezoulis is the starting 9 at South, and it'll be up to Brandon to prove his way into that team. I don't think. Can we not beat around the bush either here, guys? Like, there are rumblings in and around the character of Brandon Smith on and off the field. Now, Craig Bellamy let him go. Yep. Super coach.
They didn't want to let him go. They didn't want to let him go. They did let him go, but they didn't want to let him go.
They let him go, and they usually keep who they want to keep. Trent Robinson.
So you think they were happy with the character of Smith down in Melbourne, Hoops?
I think that they believed he value added to their team. And he'd won premierships with that club, and they didn't want to let him go. I remember speaking to their chairman, Matt Tripp, at the time, and he said, this is war. We will not let him go without a fight.
If they didn't have Wishart that can play those roles, and Harry Grant, They wouldn't have, but they got Harry Grant, arguably.
Look, Melbourne usually keep who they want to keep.
Yeah, and they kept Harry.
Roosters, Trent Robinson, elite coach, has now let Brendan go. And what an opportunity is for Brendan to be coached by Wayne Bennett. But there are questions around whether the vices off the field for Brandon, staying in Sydney, will still be a distraction for his football.
If any coach is going to get that right, though, Dave, I think it's Wayne. And that's
Fair
not
enough.
a criticism on Robbo whatsoever. But I think for whatever reason, from an outside point of view, it's pretty clear that Brandon has struggled to fit into the Roosters' way and the way that
So
they
if he is
do
to fit in,
things.
not at the Roosters, but he will at South because of Wayne, why is that, Gordy?
I think it's his work ethic. I think Wayne, deep down, doesn't care what you do away from the field, just as long as when you come to training, you got your footy boots on and your teammates want to play with you. I played with Alf that was a bit of a rogue, and we'd be listening to the races and would ask the trainer, did the horse in race 6 win or lose?
Yeah.
Right, so I've played with those big characters. Wayne's got an ability to make sure that it doesn't affect the team.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. So I think Wayne's ability to just get Smith, hey, listen, these boys here love you. So for the 80 minutes on Sunday, you play. But when we're here for 4 hours, mate, you be one of their best mates.
The other key point is a lot of it comes down to how much you're paying your players. And what the Rabbitohs are gaining is a cut price player from what he was being paid at the Roosters. This deal's in and around 1.1, 1.2 for 2 seasons. That would be a good deal in most books of any club in the game when you're talking about Brandon
Do you think it's a good sign, Braith?
Yeah, I do. I think if they, again, for me with Brendan, it comes down to the right price and where you play him. I was vocal about him not being a 9 from the start, and the Roosters paying too much for him. Like I got hammered for it for having that opinion early doors on the show.
Do you still believe that?
Yeah,
Braith,
of course,
that he's
the
not a 9?
Roosters got it. Yeah, I
No,
do.
that he's not a 9?
I don't think he's an 80-minute
Listen, I wouldn't say he's not a 9. Like he can play 9 and do a really good job at it, and he'll do a job there at South. As I said, but I think for the money they paid and the ability they thought he had as a 9, it just didn't match up. It didn't align. I see him more as a running forward 13, who you can throw in at 9, move him to 13, mix it up, play him off the bench. If you get an injury at 9, have him at 9. Start him on the bench, bring him on. If you need him to for Mamazoulis, or if you need him to for Ken Murray for a breather or anyone else in the pack, he can play anywhere in the middle. Like, he's a low centre of gravity with late footwork who's very powerful and very dangerous close to the line. He can get the quick play of the balls for the 9. That's another thing with Brandon is he probably, his strong point isn't identifying ruck speed or, a marker down or, a lazy A defender or B. He's is just seeing a gap and taking it and running hard. That's his strength. And his strength would be getting quick play of the balls, as I said, for the spine. So I wouldn't use him as a genuine 9. I never have thought that.
What surprises me?
The energy that he uses in his runs, right? And I've played with, like Michael Hancock's the same. When they go and they use that explosive energy, they run out of petrol quicker. But you get someone that goes and they pass and they run, they can play 80 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want him to play that way. If I want him to play 80 minutes, well, I bought the wrong guy.
No, he's a bulldog. The way that he plays.
Mate, and you
every
want him to
time
run
really
out of
involves-
petrol, and when he runs out of petrol, you put someone on to finish
And
the
that's
game.
why I think he's a good buy, Hoops, because if South use him that way, that's exactly what they need.
I'm with you. I think it's a great buy for Souths, and I think Wayne can be the coach who flicks the switch and gets him back on track